We are Life Church Livonia.
All right, good morning, Life Church. How is everyone today? Are you guys dried off yet? It's a little damp. I'm actually really excited that it's raining, so we need it for things to grow. So hey, if we haven't met, my name is Brian. I'm the pastor here at Life Church Livonia. I'm so glad you're here. And if you are new to our church, I would love to meet you. And so be brave, be bold. Come and find me after the service, and I'd love to just chat and just hear a little bit more about who you are, because we want this to be a place where you can come and not just attend, but actually become a place where we can be family with one another. And the way that begins is by sharing our name. And so let's make sure we do that after the service. And you picked a good day to come, because we are starting a brand new series today called How to Walk on Water. And so after the service, we're going to have a kiddie pool set up in the lobby. Anyone who wants to learn how to walk on water, we're going to have lessons, and that would be fantastic. It's not going to happen, but that would be great, wouldn't it? Then I think our church attendance would go up if we had actual water walking lessons in the lobby. And so if it worked, our attendance would go down if we did it every week and it didn't work, and everyone's just like wading through. It becomes just a big bathtub. So hey, we're just really excited about an opportunity to explore what does it mean to have faith. What is faith? And so I want to start by just kind of highlighting something for us that I think is super interesting about our culture. And it's about the things we celebrate. What is it that we celebrate? There are certain things that are really easy to cheer on, to celebrate, to give applause to. And especially things like when I go to a track meet and my kids are running. My son was in 8th grade this year. He ran track. And when he would run and do the 400, I would cheer the whole time because I was excited about what was happening. And especially when it was a close match, and I'm like thinking he might win, and I'm just cheering. I'm excited. I'm celebrating that victory, right? Or the attempt at a victory. We celebrate picture what it looks like to be in a room at a political rally on election night when their candidate wins. You know, they always show that on TV. They're like, we're going to go to so-and-so's base camp so they've been campaigning for this individual for the entire last 9 months. Now they've just won. They're the governor, or they're the senator, or the city council person, and everyone's just celebrating their victory, right? There's all these different things that we celebrate in our life. Or maybe you don't care about politics, you're not into sports, but maybe for you it's Oscar night. And that in Oscar night, where you're celebrating that you're actor, I don't think that people who are really into Oscar night celebrate quite the same way that I celebrated a track meet or a football game. But I believe you're celebrating inside, okay? I see it in you. And so the things we celebrate, I think they highlight for us what we value. When we celebrate something, it shows that we value it. And that's why I celebrate my son's track meet. That's why if you're really into movies, that's why you celebrate the Oscars. That's why we celebrate what we value. And that's why certain political rallies, people really value that. They celebrate it. But what about the things that we don't celebrate? Where is the celebration for the dad and the husband who just found out that he was laid off from his job at the factory, and as he leaves the factory on his final day of work, not knowing where his next paycheck comes, chooses to have faith that God will provide for his family despite his circumstances? Where are the people cheering for that guy? What about the young woman that maybe she wakes up in the hospital room and she has been tragically injured in an accident that she doesn't even remember? And instead of cursing God in that moment, she chooses to place her faith in God and say, God, I trust you in the midst of this. I trust you with my life in the midst of this. Where are the people cheering for them? Where are the individuals cheering for people of solid, quiet faith in God that pushes them through, drags them through, holds them through life's difficult moments? The answer is right here. This is the place where those kind of people get celebrated. All throughout the pages of the Bible, where we see God's faithful people living real life, struggling through difficult things, who are celebrated because they hold tight to something, and that something they hold tight to is God. In the midst of every storm of life, we see it over and over and over again, because the Bible applauds people of faith. And we see it more clearly than any other place in a letter that we find in the New Testament. It's the book of Hebrews. And in Hebrews chapter 11, the author spends an entire chapter cheering on people who had great faith. And I think it's really interesting to look at those people and to look at the individuals who were cheered on and ask some questions about who they are and why they made the list. So we want to start there today as we begin this whole series on what it looks like to have faith, what it looks like to be a people who have faith that allows us to walk on water. So let's jump into Hebrews chapter 11. It says, "Now faith is confidence in what we hope for, and assurance about what we do not see. This is what the ancients were commended for. By faith, we understand that the universe was formed at God's command, so that what is seen was not made out of what was visible." And then what they do after that is they start by saying, let me help you understand what faith is. That faith is this confidence in what we hope for, and assurance about what we do not see. And even the creation of the very world is something that doesn't make sense always to us, because what was made that is now visible was made out of something that wasn't visible prior to that. And we're thinking, man, I don't even understand. And then what happens is the author goes on and he says, I want to make a list for you of people that we should be cheering for. People whose faith is something we can model our lives after. He talks about Abel and Enoch and Noah and Abraham and Sarah and Isaac and Jacob and Joseph and Moses. And there's even a prostitute on the list named Rahab. This list of faith-filled people and the different things they did. And then he goes on in verse 32, he says, "And what more shall I say? I do not have time to tell about Gideon, Barak, Samson, and Jephthah, about David and Samuel and the prophets, who through faith conquered kingdoms, administered justice, and gained what was promised, who shut the mouths of lions, quenched the fury of the flames, and escaped the edge of the sword, whose weakness was turned into strength." I love that line. Whose weakness was turned into strength. "And who became powerful in battle and routed foreign armies. Women received back their dead, raised to life again. There were others who were tortured, refusing to be released so that they might gain an even better resurrection. Some faced jeers and flogging, and even chains and imprisonment. They were put to death by stoning. They were sawed in two, that's crazy. They were killed by the sword. They went about in sheepskins and goatskins, destitute, persecuted, and mistreated. The world was not worthy of them." I love that. The world was not worthy of them. They wandered in deserts and mountains, living in caves and in holes in the ground. These were the people that God's word is saying, these are the ones that are worthy of your cheers. The faithful people of God who pushed through even when life wasn't easy. These are the people that we should be cheering for. These are the ones that are held up as examples of faith. And the question that we have to ask is why? Why these people? Why were these the ones that, out of all the lists of biblical characters, why were these people the ones that the author of Hebrews chooses to hold up and say, these are the examples of what it looks like to have faith? The question becomes, is it because they were perfect? No, none of them were perfect. Was it because none of these people struggled in their faith? Absolutely not. We go through that list and we start actually looking at their life, we realize, oh my goodness, there are some people on this list that didn't just struggle a little bit, they struggled big time. And if we're not careful, passages like this could bring up a question for us where we say, well, what about the people who struggle with their faith? What about them? What about the individuals who have moments of weakness? What about the ones who have seasons of uncertainty? What about me? What about you? What about us? Because if we're not careful, we could read this list and not find ourselves in the list. And think that we have to be perfect and we're not allowed to struggle. And if we do, that somehow there's something wrong with us. Something broken in us. But here's the beautiful thing. All of those things we talked about, all the hard things, all the broken things, these people that were listed were those things too. All of them. Just in the additional list he gives there, and the people he talks about with Gideon and Barak and Samson and Jephthah and David and Samuel, all those guys, they had some seriously messed up stuff where they struggled deeply. And so this is what I want you to know today. If you ever struggle with uncertainties about faith, you'll find that you are not alone. You are not alone. You're not alone here in this place, here in this building, and you're not alone when it comes to the biblical story of God's faithful people, because the Bible is filled with people whose faith in God was tested when they faced the realities of life. It was pushed, it was stretched, and some of them, there's moments when they seem to abandon their faith, and other people you see like these moments of absolute, like unbelievable faith in God. But it's a mixed bag. Because this is real life. This isn't like this pure story of like perfect examples. This is real people meeting a real God, living a real life. That's what the Bible is. So the question for me is, what does it look like to live into a faith that is an honoring faith to God? What does it look like to become these kind of people? There's a story that we're going to look at next week during our sermon. And it tells the story of a guy named Peter. And many of you know who Peter was. He was one of the individuals who followed Jesus, one of the original inner core that followed Jesus. And we know that if you know Peter's story, that he was kind of a hot mess sometimes. Struggled back and forth, sometimes with doubt, sometimes with what felt like absolute certainty. But there's a story that we're going to look at next week where Peter and a bunch of the other disciples who are following Jesus are out in a boat, and the huge storm comes in and they're terrified. In the middle of the storm, Jesus comes just walking across the water. And in that moment, Peter's like, I want to do that. I want to have the kind of faith that allows me to step out of this boat and go to Jesus. And so he says, if it's really you, command me to come to you. And he's just like, well, come on, let's go. And we're going to talk about that story next week because he becomes a water walker in that moment. And how can we become people who have the confidence in God necessary to actually get out of the boat? Because I don't know if you know this, but if you want to walk on water, you actually have to get out of the boat. It's the way it works. You can't exercise that kind of faith inside the safe comforts of your normal rhythm and your normal routine. So I want to look at that over the next few weeks and ask the question, how can we learn to become a people of faith whose confidence in God goes beyond the normal, whose confidence in God goes beyond conditional circumstances and time-limited expressions of faith in God? How can we move into a place of unshakable trust in our amazing God? I want to know how to walk on water. And I think it starts with an important first step. And that first step that I think is so important is answering the question, what do we even mean when we say the word faith? What does that even mean? What does that mean here in this context in a Christian community at Life Church Livonia? Because the reality is that I really think that the word faith and the understanding of what faith is in our culture, especially here in America, faith has a huge public relations issue, a huge PR issue. Because the word faith and the people that are attached to the word faith have become associated with a lot of really bad, harmful ideas. And honestly, in a lot of circles, it no longer carries the deep, rich, beautiful connotations that you find in Scripture. It no longer matches up with what we historically have believed it to be. And what's happened in our culture is that we've created this distorted understanding of faith that paints a picture of individuals who are faithful, that says that any person who has faith in God is actually an unthinking, irrational person who's trusting in something that doesn't make any sense. That's the picture that gets painted of people who have faith. But it's so far from the truth. It is so far from the truth. When our culture paints a picture of individuals who have faith and says, those individuals are just weak, and faith is a crutch they lean on because they're weak people. It's not true. You look through Scripture, you read about these people of faith, and they were anything but weak. I look out at you and I see people here who have rock solid faith that maybe it's gone up and down, but I look at you and I'm like, those people are not weak individuals. They're strong, and their confidence in God is strong. The scriptures, as we read the Bible, what we see is that God doesn't call people to him or to some truth about him without first revealing himself to those people or providing tests for the validity of what he's calling them into believing. God doesn't say, come and believe in me and just do it blindly. He says, come and follow me, come and believe in me. And by the way, I'm going to show you that what I'm asking you to believe is actually true. Over and over again, we see it in scriptures. We see prophecies fulfilled. We see what happens when God has a public manifestation of his power. Sometimes it was in a miracle of healing, or maybe in other ways that God showed his power in that moment. We see it even in the physical manifestation of Jesus. God says, I'm not just going to ask you to believe in something that doesn't make sense. I'm going to ask you to believe in something and invite you into a relationship with me, and then I'm going to show you that confidence in me, faith in me, is the appropriate response to that invitation. It's not an unthinking, irrational faith. It's deeply rooted in public demonstrations of God's amazing power. And so as we look back into the history, we're going to get deep for a moment, okay? Anyone up for a Latin lesson? One person, I knew it, right? So we're going to jump in and talk about how did some of our Christian, forefathers, how did they kind of make sense of what faith was? And I think it kind of gives us a rubric that's helpful for today. What is faith? And so the first thing is notitia, knowledge. The second is a census, or agreement. And the third is fiducia, or commitment, trust. So I want to make it really simple, because I don't know if you're like me, but I need like Latin for dummies, okay? Because I am not an expert in Latin, but I think as we kind of dig into this, it starts to make a lot of sense. And it helps us understand what faith is. Notitia, this refers to the content of our faith. It's the things that, if we were going to write down what it is we believe in, what it is we have faith in, these are the things that would be on that list. Things that we can come to know. I could memorize the list. I could read about it in a document or in a series of books. Notitia is the content or knowledge of our faith. And then it moves on to a census, which is, it was where we get the word assent or agreement with. That I move from not just knowing something, but actually agreeing that it's true. Because I could read a document about an individual or about an organization, and I could take in all that knowledge, but I might not believe it's true. And when we move into a census, what we're saying is, I actually not only know it, but I agree with it. I agree with it. And the final step, what they would say in our journey of faith, is fiducia, which this is commitment to. It's not simply, I know what the facts are, I agree with what those facts are. It's now saying, I'm going to live my life in light of that reality. I'm going to commit myself to it. I'm going to trust that it's true. I'm going to prove that trust with my life. And what the ancient fathers of our faith would say is that notitia and a census aren't enough. But it's a process we're invited into. Actually, in James chapter 2, it's talking about people who have knowledge of Jesus and who agree with that knowledge, but they actually don't follow Jesus. And the example that the writer in James chapter 2 gives is he says, so a good thing that you have knowledge of Jesus. It's a good thing you believe in Jesus, but guess what? Even the demons get that far. Hardcore. Even demons acknowledge that the truth that God is real. They agree that it's real, but they don't follow him. So there's steps to our faith. Grasping the content, agreeing with it, and then committing our lives to it. And what I've seen happen in the church over and over again is that depending on where you grew up or what church you went to, we overemphasize one or the other of these different types of faith. Some faith communities, they overemphasize knowledge, and all it is knowledge. And it's this constant quest for knowledge without ever coming to a place where you even are forced to look at it and decide whether you agree. Or other places, they don't even give you the knowledge. They just want to kind of gloss over the facts and just ask for your agreement with it. And still other places, it's this idea of commitment, that we commit your life to Jesus, but you're like, I have no idea what I'm committing myself to. So I believe that when we get a balanced approach with knowledge, an agreement with that knowledge, and a commitment to live it out, we become a powerhouse of faith. And in that way, what happens is that faith becomes a growing confidence in the reality of God that is expressed through a commitment to that reality even when life is hard. That's a lot of words. I want to read it again. Faith is a growing confidence. It means that you're not always 100% there. Faith is a growing confidence in the reality of God that is then expressed through a commitment to that reality even when life is hard. This is what faith is. But most of us struggle to be there on the regular. Not all of us can say that, man, nailing it, winning at this. And the hard thing is that the church has not always done a good job of even creating a safe place to let people express where they are. Because when it comes to our faith in God, we believe that in order for our faith to be genuine, we have to be at 100% confidence about it. And in order for our faith to be genuine, we have to be at 100% certain about all of the knowledge that is laid out before us about who God is. We have to be 100% certain about every single thing we read in the pages of our Bible. And here's the problem with that, is that we don't apply that equation to our faith in any other area of our life. No matter whether you're religious or not, you have faith in things. No matter what you look like, or whether you've ever come to church before, or whether you ever come again, you have faith in different things in your life. Here's the example I'll give you. I have faith in my car. I got a new to me car recently, and part of the reason I got a new to me car is that I was starting to lose confidence or faith in the old one, right? I wasn't sure, I was like, if you asked me today, will your car start tomorrow? I would say, yeah, I'm pretty sure my car will start tomorrow. 2 months ago, before I got the newer to me car, I was like, I'm not sure if it'll start tomorrow. My confidence has gone up, but it's still not at 100%. It's not, but it's enough to believe. It's enough that I'm not laying in bed at night worrying about whether or not my car will start tomorrow. Because I don't need to be at 100% certainty about something to say I believe in it, to have faith in it, to have confidence in it, to trust that it will do what I need it to do. When it comes to our faith in God, we believe that we have to be at 100% certainty to have a genuineness to our faith, but we don't apply that equation to any other area of our life. Hebrews 11 says, now faith is confidence in what we hope for and assurance about what we do not see. This isn't 100% certainty. It almost never is. And we want to be a place here at Life Church Livonia. We want to be a place where you are given permission to be in process, growing in your confidence, increasing in your trust, but a place where you're given permission to be in process. When we say we want to be real people, meeting a real God, learning to live real life, we mean it. It's what our hope for, what we long for, where people understand that faith comes in stages, and we will always fall somewhere on a sliding scale of belief. This morning, as I was reading my news feed, I came across a story that wasn't even in my notes, but it perfectly highlights this. And it was a story about Michael and Lisa Gungor. And they were part of that, really made up one of the most popular Christian bands in the last decade and before that. And we sing some of their songs here. If you've been coming to church here for a while and you've sung the song Beautiful Things, you make beautiful things out of nothing, out of dust. You make beautiful things out of me. They wrote that song. If you've come to church at all over the last 5 to 10 years, you've probably heard some of their music. And as I was reading the story about them this morning, what I saw was a story of a couple who were in process, and that the church didn't allow to be in process. Michael especially came to a spot in his faith where he started to question some of the notitia, some of the knowledge that he'd been taught. He began to wonder if it was true, and he needed a place to process whether it was, to have a safe place where he could say, do I actually agree with this? Is this something I'm willing to commit myself to? Imagine what that would be like to be a worship leader, a person who's singing about faith, a model of what faith should be, and now you're questioning your faith. And the thing that breaks my heart about that story is that the church that he was a part of didn't give him room to do that. They kicked him out. They kicked him out of the church. Now, I understand that in order to be a Christian, you don't want a Christian leader. You wouldn't want me as your pastor to stand up here and say, I'm just not really sure anymore. I get that. But what would it look like to no longer highlight someone as a leader of the faith, but still give them a space to process? To invite them into a place where they could be growing in their confidence, where they could be invited into a place where they could ask questions even when those questions are hard. I want to be that place. I want to be that place for you. So what I want you to do is I want you to imagine a sliding scale from 0 to 100. And that scale, it's a meter of your trust or confidence in something. Your faith that whatever it is you're talking about is true, is believable. And from 0 to about 49, those are the people that fall into the disbelief category. And once you cross over to 51 to 100%, now you're starting to get over into the I believe that category. And so we're going to go back to the question that we used at the very beginning of the message. What about the Tigers? What if I told you that I believe that the Tigers were going to win the World Series next year, and then I ask you to place yourself on that sliding scale from 0 to 100 about whether or not you believe that that is true? Where would you find yourself in that scale? Someone in first service was like a 2. Other people were like, I'm on a -10. Can you be negative on that scale? Because I don't believe it's possible. Most people aren't that low on the scale. Some people are in the middle and they just don't even care, right? But there's a sliding scale of belief about that statement. And so the thing about it is this, is what would it take, let's say when it comes to the Tigers winning the World Series, that right now you're at a 10 out of 100 in your belief that they could win it next year. What would it take to move you from 10 to 20? Some new pitchers? What would it take to move you from 20 to 30? Some people that when they get up to bat, they don't leave everyone stranded on base. They actually score. What would it take to get you from 40 to 60? Would it be new coaching? New management of the team? I don't know what it would take. But I know that there are steps we could take to grow your confidence in that statement and the truth, the validity of that statement. You can move from 10 to 20 and 20 to 30 and 50 to 80. It's a process. It's a process that when it comes to our faith, I want to invite you into it. Whether or not you come here today, and if you put yourself in that sliding scale of confidence in God, if you've come here today and you're at like a 10, my hope is that throughout the course of the series and as you rub shoulders with people in this church, that you could move from a 10 to an 11. And then next month, you go from 11 to a 13. And at some point, you would have this realization that you don't even know how it happened or when it happened, but somehow, somewhere in your journey, you moved over the 50% line, and now you're thinking, I think I believe it. I actually believe, I have faith that this just might be true, and that develops into a growing confidence and trust in God. You do not have to be at 100% certainty to have genuine faith. Every person is on a journey with God in which their God confidence can be elevated, can grow, can be strengthened through intentional engagement with God and with God's people. And that's my hope for you. One step closer in your relationship with God. And my hope is that here at Life Church Livonia, you would be regularly exposed to people who are also on that journey. People who can say, listen to what God has done to increase my faith. Let me tell you a story of what happened to me last week. It was a faith-building exercise for me where I trusted God in this area and God showed up. Let me tell you the story about how we prayed for someone who needed healing last week after this service, and God delivered it. It happened. We need to be a place where we share those stories, because the ways that God shows me that I can have greater confidence in him are sometimes the ways that you need to hear for your confidence to increase. What if we became a place that shared those stories on a regular basis? What if we became a safe place for people to share their hopes, their doubts, and in so doing, find life in Jesus Christ? J.P. Moreland wrote a really great book about faith. And in there, he talks about how the church isn't always helpful. And he says, merely exhorting people to be more committed to God, to just have more faith, seldom produces greater confidence and dedicated trust in God. And then he says this, I love it. What is needed is a realistic picture of a flourishing life lived deeply in tune with God's kingdom. So just pause there for a moment. A realistic picture, not an I come to church and pretend like I have 100% confidence, but that I come to church and I just am honest about the fact that I'm at 80%. And I'm honest about the fact that I grew from 60% to 80% in the last 3 years, or that I grew from 30% to 40% in the last 10 years. What is needed is a realistic picture of a flourishing life lived deeply in tune with God's kingdom, a life that is so utterly compelling that failure to exercise greater commitment to life in that kingdom will feel like a foolish, tragic, missed opportunity for entering into something truly dramatic and desirable. What if we became that kind of place? Filled with people whose faith is growing and our confidence in God is growing, and it's being done in such a way that people are looking at us from the outside in and saying, oh my goodness, like that. I want that. Whatever they have, I want that. That quiet confidence that we place in God that transforms our life. I want to be a part of that. And when you look from the outside in, you think, man, it would actually kind of be foolish of me not to join. Like, why would I not want to be I think that all the time. As I'm praying for our church and I'm thinking about what's next for us, all the time I think to myself, man, if I would go here, I'm the pastor, so I'm supposed to think that. But I think to myself, why would people not want to be a part of this? This is incredible. And part of it is that we haven't done a good job of letting people see how incredible it is. To receive forgiveness, to receive grace, to receive this awesome, incredible opportunity for God to restore us, to transform us, to rebuild us from something that was less than we were designed to be into exactly what we were designed to be. It's compelling and it's beautiful. God is inviting you, and God is inviting me into something incredible. It's not blind, it's not unthinking, it's not irrational. It's rooted and established in an invitation from God that he says, come and follow me. And as you follow me, I'm going to show you why I'm worth following. Come and follow me and see what all the fuss is about. See what it looks like to have whole life transformation. See what it looks like to be set free from unforgiveness. See what it looks like for your relationships to be transformed from what they were to what they should and could be. Come and follow me. And in so doing, find peace, find trust, find commitment, not just you committing your life to me, but me committing myself to you. Come and follow me and find life. Come and follow me and find mercy. Come and follow me and find yourself in a process where you have a growing confidence in who God is. Come and follow me and find something worth committing your life to. This is what faith is. And I would really love to wrap it up with a perfect little bow today and give you the next 5 steps for you personally. I would love it if I could put an equation up on the screen and say, if you want to step into a growing confidence with God, these are the exact steps that you need to take. But I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do it not because I don't know how to get there, but because I want to give you permission to be in process as you get there. And over the next few weeks in our series, what we're going to do is we're going to, one by one, start to address issues that are kind of barriers to you getting there. Next week, we're going to talk about pointing yourself in the right direction. That if you're going to be on a journey of faith, you actually have to be pointed in the right direction, or else you will never get to where you long to be. The week after that, we're going to address specific barriers to faith, intellectual barriers, emotional barriers, relational barriers to faith. But for this day, today, it's a simple invitation. An invitation to process. An invitation to follow Jesus so that he could show you that he's worth following. And so the next invitation for us today is the communion table. It's a place where we have an opportunity to put our confidence in God, our trust in God, that he is who he says he is. On the night that Jesus was betrayed, he sat down with his closest followers. Guys that had growing confidence in him, but confidence that wasn't at 100%, honestly. And as he sat with them in that space, he picked up a piece of bread and he broke it. And he said, "This is my body broken for you." And in the same way, after supper, he picked up a cup and he said, this cup that we're about to drink, it actually represents my blood poured out and a new promise, a new commitment from God to people. He said, as often as you eat the bread and you drink the cup, you proclaim what I've done and I'm about to do for you until I come again. As often as you eat the bread and you drink the cup, you're saying, I'm growing in my confidence, God. I'm growing. I'm growing in my faith in you. I'm reminding myself today, God, as I eat this and I drink this, and what it is that I actually believe. And what it is that's actually possible for me and what's possible for you, what's possible for me, is relationship with God through Jesus Christ. Because Jesus, he was the once and for all sacrifice for us that would enable us to be right with God. He said, all of your brokenness, all of your sin, all of your struggles, I'm going to pay the price for that. And as a result of that, I'm going to rip down the barrier that prevents you from being in a deep, close, beautiful relationship with God. And it's going to happen because of what this table represents. And so today it's an invitation to you. In a few moments, our ushers are going to come forward. They're going to pass out little crackers. They're gluten-free, so we want everyone to be able to participate. Little cups that have juice in it. And I want to invite you to participate if you're in a place of growing confidence in who Jesus is and what Jesus has done for you. And then during that time, our band is they're gonna play a song. It's a beautiful song about people that are on a journey of faith. And I'm so proud of them. It's a song that they wrote. This came out of who we are as Life Church Livonia. This isn't something we looked at another church and said, we're going to take that song, or another band, or we're going to take this song. This is them confessing through song that they're also on a journey. So I just want to invite you to join them, to join me on that journey today as we step into communion. Jesus, I just worship you in this place. God, I have a growing confidence that you are who you say you are. of a growing trust and all of the facts and the details of who you are, of a growing ability to be committed to that reality every day in my life. And I want to be in a better place even tomorrow and the day after that. And my hope is that every person here would take one step closer to you today. And so if you're here today and you are praying and you're wondering, you're struggling, my invitation right now in the quiet of your own heart is to simply say to God, I'm going to choose to take one step closer to you today. God, I choose one step. And tomorrow I'll take another. Jesus, I commit to you all my struggles. I'm honest with you right now about all my doubt. Today I choose one step. Today I choose you. In the name of Jesus, I pray.